it's Jenny! If you haven't watched Weak Hero Season 1 yet, heads up, as always. There are tons of spoilers ahead and I do some pretty deep character analysis, so if this approach makes you uncomfortable, don't even look back and just hit that back button. Alright, so in today's episode, I'm going to cover various questions about Seok-dae and Yeong-i. You know, through all these questions, I was reminded again that there are so many other amazing characters who made Weak Hero Class 1. Shine besides our main trio of Suho, Si-yoon, and Beom-seok. These were really great questions, by the way. So especially, there were a couple of comments asking me to explain whether Seok-dae and Yeong-i use formal language or casual speech when they talk to each other. Okay, let me tackle this question first. First off, I need to address their relationship. Yeongi and Seokdae aren't lovers or anything like that, but they're incredibly comfortable with each other. You could say they have this chemistry like a real older brother and younger sister, you know? Now, in Korean honorific culture, regardless of age, if I feel really emotionally close to someone, I can speak casually even to someone older than me, just like Yeongi does. For example, I speak casually to my parents even though there's like a 20-plus year age gap between us and Seokdae. He naturally accepts Yeongi's casual speech. You notice that. Oh, right. His cousin Yeongbin also speaks casually to Seokdae the same way Yeong-i does. That's not because they're particularly close, though. It's just because they've known each other since they were kids, you know? So Yeongbin naturally speaks casually to Seokdae's family. Another subscriber asked if Yeong-i also speaks casually to Gil-soo, which is interesting. Actually, Yeong-i uses formal language with Gil-soo. Sure, she calls Gil-soo Oppa, but she's definitely using honorifics with him. Oh, and here's a fun detail. When Yeong-i talks to Seokdae, she doesn't even bother saying Oppa. She just says you, which shows how close and informal their relationship really is. Haha. Though, of course, this is also because Yeong-i has this very outgoing, no-nonsense personality. So, to wrap this up, because of Yeong-i's straightforward personality, she naturally speaks casually to most people around her, but she uses formal language with Gil-soo because he's basically the top boss of that gang. Gil-soo obviously isn't someone she's comfortable with, and she recognizes that he's the highest-ranking person in the organization. Ugh, Korean honorifics contain so many cultural layers that it's honestly headache-inducing sometimes. Haha, like, even people of the same age will use formal language with each other in certain situations. If you and I were the same age but we met at work for the first time, we'd totally have to be polite and use formal language initially. Anyway, shall we move on to the next topic? Many subscribers requested a character analysis of Seok-dae, and honestly, I'm here for it. I'm going to bring up that Yongma Land setting from episode 4. You know, the one that gave off this apocalyptic vibe like zombies might pop out any second? I'll analyze based on that scene because it's honestly one of my favorite episodes. Seokdae really showed his deeper side at Yongma Land, right? And the way he decided to turn himself in while helping Yeong-i and the youngest member escape? Let me dig into this scene more. But first, let me give you a quick recap of Seokdae's character. So, he is Yeongbin's cousin, and you could say he's basically the leader of this makeshift family of runaway kids. He's not technically an organized gangster, but he definitely has connections with actual gangsters. And here's the thing, his runaway family is involved in real criminal activities. It's not just petty stuff. Yeong-i belongs to his group, and despite living in pretty rough circumstances, they show these really human moments of building genuine sibling-like bonds. Personally, when Yeong-i asked him, "Do you like me?" I was literally answering, "Yes, Seokdae totally likes you," in my head, haha. I really hope that when Seokdae gets out of prison, he'll meet Yeong-i again and they can start fresh. Wait, did I just go off on a tangent? Let me get back to the Yongma Land scene. So at Yongma Land, Seokdae makes sure Yeong-i and the youngest member escape first, then he locks that rusty amusement park gate so only he gets caught by the police, remember? I thought this moment was so perfectly Seokdae. Like, this is his true nature showing through. The way I see Seokdae is this. He's a kid who left his family and ran away from home, but despite all the mess and problems in his life, he's still this protective big brother figure for Yeong-i and the younger gang members. And that's what makes him completely different from Gil-soo, you know? You saw how Gil-soo just uses other gang members and then tosses them aside like they're nothing, right? Totally disposable to him. When Gil-soo beats him up and goes, "You know why you're worthless?" Because you're too soft, I think that's exactly the point. Seokdae wasn't meant to become evil like Gil-soo. Sure, Seokdae got mixed up with gambling sites and became this low-level thug who beats people up for money, but honestly, he was just trying to survive somehow. But here's why we end up loving him. When it came time to face the consequences of his actions, he quietly took responsibility and voluntarily walked into police custody. Instead of continuing to run away, he decided to pay his debt to society. That police station interrogation scene, he has this really peaceful, almost relieved expression, and that totally sold me on his character. He looked genuinely at peace, knowing that he was finally paying for what he'd done and was free from Gil-soo's control. Actor Shin Sung-hun absolutely nailed that whole sense of liberation. It was this peaceful, zen-like expression of someone who finally escaped and chose to do the right thing. Since I brought up Shin Sung-hun, let me add something cool. He also appeared in DP, which is another masterpiece by Weak Hero's creative director Han Joon-hee. He played this absolutely terrible senior soldier named Hwang Jang-soo. Anyone who's seen DP knows exactly how perfectly irritating that character was. Hwang Jang-soo was so frustrating to watch, and Shin Sung-hun's acting was incredible. Oh, and by the way, I'm totally planning to dive into DP analysis after I finish with Weak Hero. Here's a fun fact though, Shin Sung-hun was actually a professional soccer player for years before becoming an actor. I read this interview where he said his sports background really helped him understand male hierarchies and group dynamics in these roles. Other actors say he's genuinely this really polite, well-mannered guy in real life, which makes it even more impressive that he can pull off such complex and sometimes completely awful characters. Now, let me talk about the cultural context behind that brief conversation between Seon and Seok-dae at the police station. Remember when Seok-dae sees Seon leaving the police station after his whole meeting with Beom-seok in Secretary Park? And he gives this barely visible smile and casually goes, "Let's grab a meal together sometime?" Seon just responds with this blank expression. "Why do you guys always want to eat?" And that, "You guys" probably includes Suho too. This cracked me up because it's so typically Korean. In Korean culture, we basically have all these food-related expressions for being polite, you know? Instead of asking, "How are you doing?" we'll ask, "Did you eat dinner?" or "Have you had lunch?" You've probably noticed this if you've watched a bunch of Korean dramas. When we're saying goodbye, we'll say, "Let's eat together sometime." But honestly, it's more likely just a polite closing greeting rather than an actual invitation to eat. So it's pretty similar to saying, "See you later" in English. Oh. Of course, if we really want to meet up and eat, we'd say something like, "Let's actually set a date, haha." But going deeper into that final scene where Si-eun and Seok-dae face each other, this guy received money to beat up Si-eun because his cousin asked him to. But then at Yongma Land, he witnessed the whole crazy situation of this pretty-faced kid completely demolishing Gil-soo. Right, Seok-dae initially tells Si-eun something like, "Sorry for thinking you were just some pushover," but by then, he had definitely figured out Si-eun's really unhinged side. So when he sees Si-eun leaving the police station and says, "Let's have a meal together sometime," he actually knows there's basically zero chance of them ever actually eating together. But he's saying it as this way of showing respect for Si-eun, you know? It's the same vibe as Suho recognizing Si-eun by calling him a total lunatic. Oh, this is cute. Recently, at the Weak Hero Homecoming event, someone asked Shin Sung-hun, "Do you think your character and Si-eun would actually end up eating together?" And he answered, "Maybe like 5 meals. He was being pretty witty there. And you know what? Speaking of that homecoming event, I have to tell you about something that absolutely got me emotional. Seeing all the actors come together and talk about how much they love this drama and how deeply they connected with it. Honestly, it was so touching. Shin Sung-hun said something that just hit me right in the feels. He talked about Seok-dae's future and said, when he gets out of prison, if Yeongi is standing right there outside those prison gates, I think he'd be so moved and it would give him the courage to live in this world again. And when he said that, Lee Yeon, who plays Yeong-i, literally started crying. Watching Lee Yeon tear up like that, you could see how much these actors genuinely love this show and the characters they brought to life. It really showed me that they weren't just acting roles. They were truly invested in these characters' stories and relationships. Alright, so in my next short audio, I'll tackle the requests about Kang Woo-young. Even though he didn't have a huge role, that sparring scene with Suho in episode 7 and his confrontation with completely unhinged Si-yoon definitely left an impact. Plus, I personally really like Woo Young's character. That message he left for Suho on the rolling paper, totally Woo Young-like, I thought. Feel free to drop any questions in the comments. You guys always help me discover these little details that make me want to dig even deeper into these characters. Thanks for listening, and catch you in the next episode. Have an awesome day.